The parasha of this morning is known as Parasha Vayeshev. Parasha Vayeshev is parasha of this morning, and it means to settle. And Yaakov settled in the land of his forefathers sojourning. The Torah mentioned the word, and Yaakov settled. Yaakov is not sojourning now. Yaakov is settling down, because as it is, as the Torah said that, and the Lord God said unto him, if we remember in the dream, right? He said, "This land I will give unto you and unto your descendant as an everlasting covenant." So it is an everlasting land. I give it to you because this is the land I promised to your forefathers, the land I promised to Abraham, to Isaac. So now Jacob is settling in the land. He's no longer sojourning like his father, but is settling down in the land. Israel loved Joseph more than all its sons, since he was a child of his old age, and he made him a cotenet pasim, which means a fine woolen tunic. That is Bereshit chapter 37 from verse 3. The Gemara Shabbat 10b teaches one should never show favoritism to one child, for because of the two measures of fabric that Jacob gave Joseph over his brother, that is the ketonet pasim, which is the fine woolen tunic. One thing leads to another until our ancestor went down to Egypt. Until here from the Gemara, Rabbi Yitzhak Metzin states, did Yaakov favoritism really cause our ancestors exile? Hadn't Adonai foretold the exile to Abraham more than 150 years earlier? He explained, the Gemara does not mean that Yaakov favoritism was the actual cause of the exile to Egypt, to Mizraim. Rather, the Gemara is teaching that the fact that Adonai used Yaakov favoritism of Joseph as an instrument to bring about the exile indicates that Adonai does not approve when parents show favoritism to one child over another or over the others. The Torah says, Parasha Vayeshev, Joseph settled in the land of his forefather sojourning in the land of Canaan. These are the chronicles of Jacob. Immediately it starts. Joseph, at the age of 17 years old, was a shepherd with his brother by the flocks. So now the Gemara here is saying that favoritism is not good. The Torah is talking to us as parents. The Torah is talking to those who want to be a parent, and the Torah is talking to those who are already have children. It's saying favoritism is not good. Because if you have only one child, it's different. Okay, you have only one child, you put all your love, all your care, all your emotion, everything upon that child to raise him or her up into a good person, or into a good husband, or into a good wife, or into a great leader, right? But when you have a lot of them, or multiple of them, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, it doesn't matter. When you have a lot of them, the Torah is saying you shall not show favoritism. I know as parent it is very hard. I know as parent it is extremely difficult, because no matter how we try to do what to be neutral, there is one child that we love most among them all. Why? I don't know. That is the truth. I don't know. Only God knows why it is embedded in the human nature, or in our being, that we just love one child. Maybe because the child he do obey. Maybe the child he do listen. Maybe the child is very smart. Maybe the child is the most intelligent among them all. Maybe the child can discern between what is good and what is bad at an early age. Maybe the child is a good administrator. Maybe there is something, a great value in that child that makes the parent or one of the parents to love him or her more than the rest of his or her sisters, our brother or sisters. That is what I'm trying to say. But the Torah is telling us categorically here that favoritism, it is not unacceptable. You should not show favoritism unto one and disfavor the other. Even though if you love one among the rest of all your child, you should hide it within yourself. Don't show it. Because once you begin to show that, then you are causing animosity. You are causing hatred within your own family. You are sowing the seed of discord in your own family. You are sowing the seed of destruction among your own children. You are sowing the seed of hatred among your own children, among your own blood. Because they will start saying, oh, you know what? My father loved him the most. Oh, you know what? My father loved her the most. You know what? My mama loved him the most. Or my mama loved her the most. And then the other will become dejected. Then the other will become a very, very reserved and private. The other, then, because you are now doing what, you are destroying their self-esteem. I mean, the other children. Because the one is like this, yeah, and the other are like this because they see that their father or their parent or their mama does not love them like the rest. So here, he's saying that in the Gemara, they're saying that it is the favoritism that Jacob, our forefather, showed that lead us into what? Into exile in Israel, in Egypt. But remember one thing for sure, which I want to explain this morning, that Israel was not captured as a slave in what? In Mizraim. No. We went there on our own will. We went there by ourselves. We were not captured like a slave, no, like a war. There's a war, or they captured them and they brought them to Egypt as a what? As a slave. No. We went to Mizraim, to Egypt on our own will, because Joseph was already the viceroy of Egypt, and Joseph invited his parents down there. But it was in Egypt, because we multiply, because we grow, because we are prosperous. Then a Pharaoh that does not know Joseph, rather a Pharaoh who doesn't want to know anything that Joseph did. He's not interested about how Joseph saved his forefather's kingdom. He's not interested of the good deed of Joseph. To him, he just doesn't like the people. That is anti-Semitism. He just doesn't like them. He is afraid because of their might, because of their wealth, because of their strength, that they may combine with other country and fight against his kingdom. So let's enslave them. So the slavery started in Egypt after hundreds of years. After 2-something years, they were in Egypt doing fine. Everything was okay. There was no problem. But here, the rabbi Isaac Metzin, he said right here that the Jacob favoritism really caused our ancestors exile, having the Holy One, blessed be He, foretold Abraham 150 years earlier that your descendant will be what? Will be slave in a foreign land, which is true. It is written in the Torah, because the Holy One, blessed be He, has foretold our forefather Abraham that your descendant will surely be what? Will surely be slave in a foreign land. But how do we bring about this slavery? How do we bring about the prophecy that God has spoken? The prophets of God will surely come to pass. There is no how, there is no way. It will surely come to pass. By one way or the other, the prophecy will come to pass. God has spoken something about you. God has given a good promise about you. Then you say, oh, I'm waiting. It's taking too long. It's taking too long. The prophecy is coming. It's not coming to pass. Oh, what is going on? Oh, what? Be patient. The Lord said, all the good things, all the things, He said, I will not abandon you. I will not leave you. That I will surely accomplish all the good things I have spoken concerning you. Most of us, the problem of man is because we always think that we have no time. We are always running against time. We say, oh, the time is going, I'm going to be 200 years old, I'm going to be 100 years old, I'm going to be 50 years old, and God has spoken concerning me a long time ago, it's not coming to pass. And let me go and try another way. Then when you go to try another way, you face the consequence. But why can't you be patient and wait for God? Our Father David said, oh Lord my God, my heart is fixed. My heart is fixed to follow you. If we are patient, God will bring to pass all the good things He has spoken concerning us. So now that is the time that God should bring to pass what He has spoken about Israel, which has given the vision He has given to Abraham, our forefathers, that it is time that your descendants will go into slavery in Mizraim, in a foreign land that they do not know. But what the rabbi is saying here is that God used this favoritism as a catapult. God used this favoritism as what? As a catalyst, an exile, to catapult this prophecy, to bring to pass about this prophecy in a foreign land. In this great emotional drama that we consume the balance of the section of this book of the Torah, we are witness to a very difficult family situation and the dynamic consequences that is created. The Torah itself testifies to the love and favoritism that Jacob showed towards his son Joseph. We can well understand this relationship of Jacob and Joseph, since Joseph strongly resembled his father physically, was extremely talented, and is a great boy, and was the son of his beloved wife Rahel. However, Israeli tradition raised objection to the overt favoritism shown to Joseph by Jacob, when he bestowed upon him the special garment that signified their bond and love for one another. You see, their father, Jacob, he said, okay, you know what? For all my sons, all my children, this one is the top. All of you have to do what? Have to obey him. And remember, who is Joseph? Joseph is the 11th born. He's the last before the last. So how come the old 10 brothers who are before him, and we don't even know countless of sisters that are before him, all have to do what? All have to obey him? Because he was a very talented boy. His mind was above that of his brother of his days. He was a very, very smart boy, a good administrator of all the things of his father's house, and we can testify to that. Torah also testified to that when Joseph was in the house of Potiphar in Mizraim. We're going to see that in the next parasha. That Joseph was a good administrator, a good man who oversee the whole entire house of Potiphar. The same thing he was doing with his father. He was overseeing everything that his father has. He learned, he write, he understand how to do things perfectly well. But for this, his brother, they hated him even more. And they hate him even more because of his dreams. I have a dream. Brother, a naive boy. Just a young man, he's so naive. Brother, oh, you know what? I had a dream last night. Just like a child or a boy will come to their parents. Say, oh, Mama, Papa, I had this dream last night. I want to tell you my dreams. He might not be doing it specially. He's just a young boy. I want everybody to know about my dream. He was so naive. Same, but the more he tells his brother his dreams, the more they hate him. The more he explains to them who the revelation that God is revealing unto him, the more they hate him. Have you ever had such an experience? It's as if the more you do things right, the more the opposite is coming. The more you try to do what is good, the more you receive the opposite consequence. You start thinking what is going on. But I'm trying to do everything right. I'm trying to do everything good. But why am I receiving the opposite consequence when I'm trying to do what is right? I can see a lot of people that are doing what is wrong and everything is fine with them. But me, I'm trying to do what is right and I'm receiving the opposite result. What is going on here? Be patient. See that what God has spoken concerning you, He will surely bring it to pass. Nobody can hide or nobody can overthrow the plan of God which God has had for you. Even the brother of Joseph, they tried to overthrow the prophecy. He said, let us kill him. No, we're not going to kill him. Let us sell him and let us see what is going to be of his dreams. All the dream he has dreamt, let's see what is going to be of it. He said, let's cast him out. Stupid boy. Foolish guy, But they don't know that what they're actually catapulting him into greatness. Your enemies think that they are shooting you, but they don't know that they are catapulting you into greatness. Your enemies think in their mind that they are harming you, but they don't know that actually they are not harming you, but they are catapulting you into greatness. They thought in their mind, oh, let's sell him and nothing will ever become of him. He's gone, and let's make profit out of him. But actually, they are about to bring to pass about the plan of the Most High God. Your enemy might be thinking he wants to destroy you, but for sure, I don't want you to see it in a negative ways, especially those also that are watching on the internet. Do not see it in a negative way. You might think, oh, my enemy wants to destroy me, wants to kill me, wants to do this. No. They want to bring to pass about the good plan of God that God has had for you in His book of life. We can also understand why Joseph himself felt so special and justified in lording it over his brothers by telling them of his dreams and ambitions. Again, the traditional commentary to the Torah found fault in Joseph's youthful arrogance and lack of judgment. And finally, we can also appreciate how hurt the brother were by the action of their father and brothers. Yes, as I just said, the boy was I can say arrogant in one sense that yes, I am the father's child. I am the father's boy. Nobody can talk to me anyhow. If you talk to me anyhow, I'm going to report you to my father. Then you face the consequence from my father. The Torah said, and he goes and give bad report to their father Jacob of the sons of their father's concubines, Zilpah and Bilhah. Oh, father, this is what the sons of your concubines, this is what they did. They did bad. They are tough and I'm angry with them. I know who does that too. My son is going to come and say, Papa, this is what my sister did. They do this. Oh, Papa, can you see? She slapped me. Papa, punish her. Papa, you see, because to him, I know that my Papa loved me a lot. So I'm going to complain or I'm going to tell Papa all the bad things that my sisters are doing. Then Papa will punish them for doing bad things. So we can see it never ends. It is still in us. It is still part of the family. It never ends. The Torah is speaking what is true. The Torah is speaking what it is a fact. It is not a blah story. It is a real story. It is what has happened that Torah is relating onto us, that we as a child of God, we as a student of the Torah should not repeat the same mistake that our forefather did. They were so hot that they felt that Joseph was an existential threat to their very survival as a family and future nation. So, we are faced with a situation where all the leading people involved in the story are both right and wrong at the same time. We can appreciate the feeling of each of the parties to the story, and yet we are aware of the disaster and trauma that could result. When you favor one child over the other, When you favor a boy or a girl over the rest of the family, be ready for the consequence. Because the consequence will not be good at the end of time. The consequence will not be fine. Because say, oh, they are children, they are growing up. When they grow up, I'm going to change. No. You are already building, planting the seed of evil, the seed of hatred in your own family, within your own children. And when they grow up, you can say, okay, when they are like 10 years old, when they are like 5 years old, when they are like teenager, everything will be fine. Everything will not be fine. What a child sees is what he grows up with. It is not what they see when they are a teenager. No, it's not what they see when they are 10 years old. It is what they see from day one. And when you start planting that hatred or that evil seed, that I love this, I don't like this, I favor this more than this, or I take care more of this over this. You know what? I have a lot of boys. Let me favor the boys over the girls. Because the girls, they grow up, they marry, and they go to their husband. The boys are the most important. No, all children are important. There is no boys or girl. Yes, the boy is a continuation of your family line. It's a continuation of your family tree. But that doesn't mean that you should show favoritism to the boys over the girls. No, they are all children, and they are all your children. It doesn't matter boy or a girl. Actually, you should even take care of the girls more than the boys, because they are fragile. So God is saying, He said, do not show favoritism among the children, because you are planting an evil seed. And when that seed grow and germinate, and you grow up and you are old and full of age, the children start fighting among themselves. Are you going to have peace? Then you grow up full in age, you are scared. You are afraid because your children never love one another. Then you begin to ask questions. How come this? Why can't you love yourself? Why do you fight this over this? But you are the cause, because you are the one that planted the seed of hatred from the beginning. Now you put all the fault upon the children. Say, you guys, are you not adults? Are you not grown up? Are you not educated? I trained you all. I gave you all this, all the education in life. You are a doctor, you are a lawyer, you are this and that. You are sitting, you hate yourself. Yes, because you are the father that planted that seed, or you are the mama that planted that seed of hatred from the beginning. It doesn't matter the amount of education that you gave to them. No. The most important education is the one from home. They started learning from home before they go to school, right? But if you plant that negative seed, so how do you want them to overcome it? You think the professor at school or some teacher in some outside school is going to remove that from them? No. So the Torah is telling us that it is extremely important that we as parents, or those who are to become a parent, should heed the lesson of the Torah and follow the example of the Torah. Do not show favoritism to any of your children. There is an overarching drama that is being enacted here in the story of Joseph and his brothers. Israeli tradition teaches us that we are all somehow main actor in the great drama of human civilization, presented by the stage of Israeli history. Even though each of the individuals involved in the narrative presented in this week's Torah reading apparently act on his own volition, the total sum of their action will result in the descent of Israel, of the people, into Egyptian slavery and the eventual redemption and acceptance of the Torah at Sinai. So it is a step-by-step thing. We can see from the hatred that they hated their brother, that led Joseph into Egypt. And Joseph said, do not fight yourself. Do not be angry with yourself. It is the plan of the Holy One, blessed be He. It is the plan of God that I should come before you to prepare all your ways, so that when you come, you will not suffer. Do you see the way Joseph interpreted that dreams now? Do you see the way Joseph interpreted the actions of his brother? telling us that Joseph was far ahead of them in the spirit realm. That Joseph's spirituality is very advanced than that of his brothers. Even though they are older than him in age, yes, but he is more advanced than them in the spiritual realm than they ever imagined. They thought, okay, Joseph will come and Joseph has become the viceroy of Egypt. Then Joseph is going to punish us. Joseph is going to kill us. Joseph is going to do all this. Joseph said, no, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to punish you for what you have done to me. It is the plan of the Holy One that I should come before you and prepare for your way. But if it is another person, if it's another people, or if it's another one, another group of people who doesn't have the understanding of the spirit, if it is me, I will say, oh yeah, you punished me, you did this to me, now I'm going to punish you. It is my time to punish you now. It is my time for you to face the consequence of your actions. Right? But Joseph never interpreted it that way. Joseph interpreted it in a different way. He saw it in a different light. Joseph saw it from another perspective, not from the negative perspective, but from the positive perspective. And that led us into Egypt. We brought Jacob came, all the children came, and they all grew and multiplied, and then the slavery came, and then the redemption came, and then we received the Torah on Mount Sinai. So you see, everything is by stage. God controls all the activities of life. All the way that are steps one by one in life is being controlled by the Holy One. Some people, they don't want God to be in control. They think they can control it by themselves. No matter what, God is in control. We recite in our daily prayer that there are many thoughts and intentions in the heart of human, but that eventually it is the guidance of heaven that will prevail. Nowhere is the basic understanding of the pattern of Israeli history more evidence than it is in the story of Joseph and his brothers. Everyone involved seemingly follows their own individual course of action, but the result is a historic change in the dynamics of the family and the trajectory of Israeli history. Only if we step back and view the entire chain of events in the totality can we begin to see this emerging pattern as the will of heaven guidance, the family of Jacob and the Israeli people. We can see that it is the guidance of heaven. It is what is it is the way it has been planned in the heavens that is coming to pass in the physical world. That no matter how we try to say, God, because the most difficult thing is a man to leave something to uncertainty. Say, you know what? I'm not sure. You know what? I can't give God everything. I just say, God, take over everything. I want to be in control. I want to be there. I want to take charge. Especially in the world that we live now, in the 21st century, that they tell you are absolutely free for everything. I want to control everything. I want to be in charge of everything that is happening. But sometimes we have to let it go. Sometimes you cannot be in charge of everything. Sometimes we have to calm, relax. Not this high hypertension or this, stress every time. Relax. We have to relax. Give God chance to work in our life. Let's give God chance to recreate us. Let's give God chance, as He has spoken concerning us, that He's going to bring it to pass one by one. The brother of Joseph, they tried to do what? To destroy the prophecy or the dream of their brother Joseph. They tried to make sure that dream did not come to pass. But actually, they are helping that dream to come to pass. And as tomorrow is the first day of Hanukkah, after the sunset, the fourth candle, I just want to quickly touch about the festival of Hanukkah. Rabbi Nissim ben Reuven states that Hanukkah, the name Hanukkah is a contraction of Hanu, calf, and hay. They rested on the 25th day of the month of Kislev. The Maccabees' war against the Greeks ended and the Jews rested. This requires explanation. However, why would our sages name the holiday after the fact that the warrior rested rather than after the fact that the Israeli people were victorious in the battle? Rabbi Friedlander explained, victory in a war has two aspects. One, the fact that the enemy was defeated, and two, the fact that the fighting has ended. The latter can, of course, occur without the former. For example, if there is a negotiated peace or a third party intervene, but generally one will expect a victor to commemorate the first aspect more than the second aspect. That is, that he conquered and he defeated the enemy. Our sages, however, wanted to commemorate the reason why we are fighting against the Greek. Our battle was not like the wars of nations, a conquest for military victory. Rather, it was a conquest to be left alone, to be allowed to study the Torah and perform the mitzvot as we please without foreign interference. The sage is saying, why was the name Hanukkah? Why can't the Maccabees name it the victory over the Greek? Why can't they say, okay, the victory over the enemy's army, or the pursuit of the Greek out of the temple? But no, they say so. They say Hanukkah, which means they rested on the 25th days of Kislev. They rested. Why naming it? Why giving it such a name? So the rabbi is giving us a deeper explanation and a deeper understanding about this, saying that they use that name to express the connotation that we want the foreign powers to leave us alone. Leave us alone. Stop disturbing us. Stop interfering in our spiritual life. Leave us alone to study the Torah. We are the students of the Torah. The Torah was handed unto us from above, and God wants to use us as a light to the entire world. We just don't stop intervening in our spiritual life. Let us continue to do our mitzvot as God has commanded us, because the Greek want to destroy that thing which God has given us, which is the Torah. So they gave it to rest or after the victory. Rabbi Friedlander continues. He said, regarding the future era, the reason all of Israeli people and his prophets and wise men desired the day of Messiah is so that they will rest from the oppression of the kingdoms that do not allow them to occupy themselves with the Torah and mitzvot. Rambam wording note by Rabbi Friedlander is consistent with the above explanation of what the Maccabees were celebrating and with the fact that they named the holiday Hanukkah. That is what we say, that our people and our prophet and our end desire is for us to rest on the day when the Messiah will return back again. The ultimate rest is the return in the world to come. The ultimate rest are from all the trouble, from all the tribulation, from all this oppression of the physical world, is when the Messiah will return back and give us a complete and a total rest. And that is why they name it the name Hanukkah. And I also enjoy us one by one, as the rabbi of this synagogue, to please to let us have what? Let us rest as we are resting this Shabbat. Shabbat is a rest. Shabbat is a total strike. It's a total strike from all the work. for you to do what? To recalibrate yourself, your mind to the future work. That you have to relax. Not every time work and work and work. Someone that works too much will break down. The stress will be too much, and when you break down, it won't be good. So that is why God, in His mercy, in His great love, in His power, established the Shabbat, that we should rest on this special day, that we should come close unto Him. And He has given us His Torah, that He draw us close unto Himself. The Haftorah said, "Can two walk without agree? Can two people walk together without agreement?" Of course not. They have to agree. And we had that agreement on Mount Sinai. That's why God is saying He's going to judge us very fearsome than the rest of the world. Because God has given us the Torah. We know what is right. We know what is just. And if we refuse to do what is right and just, if we sell innocent blood, if we sell innocent people for money, just like the way the brothers of Joseph did, then the consequence will be so bad. So God is telling us, two people cannot work together except they agree. We agree with the Holy One to work together with Him on Mount Sinai. And He gave us His Torah, the light of life, that we should follow it. Then we will be His children, His prophet. So, and for all our days, our elders, our sages, our wise men, they all dream for the days of the return of the Messiah. That when He returns back, He is going to give us a complete and a total rest. Shabbat Shalom.